There have been thousands of investigations conducted simultaneously in multiple countries around the world. The defendants are of an advanced age, many over 90 years old, some with hearing aids, others in wheelchairs. But several decades ago, they were full of vigor and wore swastika armbands. The accused had long evaded justice until a manhunt was launched to track them down. Who and when did the pursuit of Nazi war criminals begin? A man, his face hidden behind a binder, a unique record holder from World War II. His name is Josef Schutz. He is the oldest person convicted of Nazi crimes. The trial began in October 2021, when the defendant turned exactly 100 years old. He could no longer walk and was confined to a wheelchair. Indeed, these trials, the trials of the 21st century, are not trials of individuals. They are already one foot in the grave. These are trials against a movement. It is precisely to remind us of what happened, of the crimes they committed. Josef Schutz was accused of complicity in the murder of 3,500 prisoners at the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. Surviving witnesses claim that he served as a guard, specifically a watchtower observer. The defendant denied any wrongdoing, insisting that during World War II, he worked on a farm. But the court sentenced Schutz to 5 years in prison. In April 2023, the convicted man passed away. He was 102 years old. I think that trying a person at 102 years of age, who no longer remembers where he was, what he did, or who he is now, is not just a meaningless endeavor, but the understanding that they could be discovered and found at any moment ruined the lives of many German criminals, Nazi criminals who went into hiding in different countries. The hunt for Nazis began immediately after the conclusion of the Nuremberg trials. Many realized that thousands of war criminals had evaded punishment. The most renowned detective in this field is Simon Wiesenthal, an architect by education who survived 12 labor and concentration camps, made the pursuit of fugitive Nazis his life's work. The most famous episode was the capture of Adolf Eichmann, the SS Obersturmbannführer, one of the masterminds behind the Holocaust. He is considered the true architect of the entire program to exterminate the Jews. He was found, extradited, and taken to Israel, where he was tried and hanged. In 1977, the Simon Wiesenthal Center was established. Officially, the public organization was dedicated to combating terrorism and anti-Semitism. Unofficially, the center's staff were known as Nazi hunters. They managed to track down hundreds of war criminals hiding all over the world. It was called the Jewish Document Center, referring to the documents of atrocities. Now it is the Simon Wiesenthal Center, which in reality is engaged in the search for these very Nazi criminals, including those outside of Europe. Even to a greater extent outside of Europe. Many Nazi criminals, ideologues, and executioners found a seemingly peaceful haven in the countries of Latin America. Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Chile. For money, they changed their names, obtained new passports, and bought houses. Thus, Josef Mengele, known as the Angel of Death from Auschwitz, managed to escape to Buenos Aires. In the concentration camp, the doctor conducted horrific experiments on prisoners, and yet he evaded punishment. He was identified, tried, and allowed to leave Argentina for Brazil. For 10 years, these talks, searches, and attempts to organize judicial decisions dragged on. He died of natural causes in Brazil and never faced justice. Decades later, those who wore the SS insignia no longer hesitated to openly speak about the punitive operations of the Wehrmacht. This interview was given by Erich Priebke, a participant in the mass execution in the Ardeatine caves. At that time, the Germans shot 335 civilians, the youngest of whom was only 14 years old. It was a brutal response to the explosion that took place on Via Rasella in Rome, which was carried out by Italian partisans. You live in the present, but we lived in 1933. You can understand that from that moment on, all of Germany was Nazi. We did not commit crimes. We did what we were ordered to do. We are not criminals. After the program aired, a wave of outrage arose. The Italian government sent a request for extradition to Argentina, where Erich Priebke had been hiding since the end of World War II. After a long pause, the South American authorities finally handed over the former Hauptsturmführer. For the Argentines and Brazilians, a Nazi was a criminal, No one opposed the decision of the New Ambers process, but somewhere under the surface, they perceived it as a way to counter imperialism. Additionally, there was money involved. A lot of material wealth was taken out, precisely to Latin America. And for this wealth, one could turn a blind eye to the corruption, which was enormous in Latin America at that time. The trial of Erich Priebke stretched on for 4 long years. The acquittal shocked the public. Mass protests erupted. Due to this intense reaction, the prosecution was forced to file an appeal. Speaking in court, one of the German fascist criminals, Priebke, stated that "You do not understand. We were put in such circumstances where we could not act differently." In fact, this statement caused a wave of outrage around the world because it showed that many Nazi criminals had not repented or realized their wrongdoings. And in principle, this was the position of most of those who were caught. During the retrial, Erich Priebke was sentenced to 15 years in prison. However, considering the defendant's poor health, the term was reduced to 10 years and he was allowed to serve his sentence under house arrest. Germany also sought extradition to try Priebke, but the Italian authorities refused, explaining the decision based on the principle: a person cannot be punished twice for the same crimes. I am certain that many of those who were caught, and even more so those who were not, remain convinced that they were in the right. They still hold these positions, but due to circumstances, they must remain silent. But at any opportunity, they immediately make their presence known. The pursuit of fugitive Nazis became a lifelong mission for the married couple, Serge and Beta Klarsfeld. By publishing the results of their investigation in the press, they succeeded in achieving the extradition of the Leon meatpacker Klaus Barbie. During the war, he set dogs on prisoners, ripped out their nails, and applied electric shocks, and personally participated in shootings. After World War II, the criminal sought refuge in Bolivia. In the 1980s, he even became an advisor to the country's president on security matters. We found Klaus Barbie in Bolivia and secured his extradition to France, where he committed crimes during the war, particularly against children. Barbie was sentenced to life imprisonment and he died in prison. Another Nazi criminal, Walfried Rauf, responsible for the persecution of Jews in North Africa, is also dead. Alois Brunner, who arrested and deported my mother-in-law, also passed away in Damascus, where he was hiding from extradition. The couple had plenty of work to do on the European continent as well. The Klarsfelds, in a literal and figurative sense, forcefully drew the public's attention to the fact that the third chancellor of the FRG was a former Nazi, a member of the NSDAP, Kurt Kiesinger. During the convention of the Christian Democratic Union, Bete managed to infiltrate the stage and slap the politician. Throughout the campaign, we gathered a dossier on Kurt Kiesinger, with documents confirming his membership in the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Then we had to make this dossier public. For this, we needed to draw attention to our activities. Bete managed to do this with her slap. She risked her life and freedom. Her life because Kiesinger's security could have shot her, and her freedom, as my wife was sentenced to a year in prison. In April 2008, the Simon Wiesenthal Center announced the launch of Operation Last Chance. The Nazi hunters compiled a list of the most wanted war criminals. Among them was Sandor Capiro, a Hungarian gendarme who, according to the center's staff, participated in the execution of over 1,000 people in Serbia. But he was not brought to justice in time. Capiro passed away in a Budapest hospital in 2011. That same year, another suspect on the list, Heinrich Bohr, was sent to prison. He was accused of murdering 3 residents of the Netherlands. The 90-year-old former SS man was sentenced to life imprisonment. He was taken to prison directly from a nursing home. In 2013, Bohr passed away.